So one of the things I always like to quote is Joe Navarro, who says, "When the lips disappear, trouble is near."
Welcome back to Private Club Radio. I'm your host, Denny Corby, and this is a unique episode. I'm very fortunate in my line of work that I get to meet, interact, and engage with many different people across many different platforms, organizations, backgrounds, skills. It's very, very cool, and I'm very fortunate I'm able to do that. And looking at the show, I want to bring somebody on who was an expert in communications, both verbal, nonverbal, physical communications. I think it's extremely important just for all of us as a whole. For me, with the performing background, it's very important just being able to look and read a crowd and see who I have up on stage or who I'm interacting with, and just being able to pick up subtle cues that lets me know if they're going to be a good person to work with or not. So I got introduced to our guest today, Miss Anne-Maartje Oud, coming to us from Amsterdam. We have a mutual, I want to say friend, very close friend of hers, I want to say less than an acquaintance for me. His name's Joe Navarro. He is a phenomenal expert. I reached out to him. He was unfortunately very busy, as he always is, and he really said, "You don't want me anyway. You want to have his really good friend," in who I have on today, Anne-Maartje Oud, coming to us all the way from Amsterdam. She's been featured in the Psychology Today, the New York Times, has a really unique background coming from the Academy of the Arts as a teacher, director, and professional in acting. And during her last year of school, because of her skills and a lot of the classes in schooling was focused on physical and verbal, nonverbal communications, she was asked to give a presentation to a bunch of bakers on how to have better stage presence, how to give a good presentation. And from there, in 2006, she started her company, the Behaviour Company, which specializes in helping people with their verbal, nonverbal, and physical communications. So really helping people creating a better work environment, developing better interpersonal skills, and really just becoming a really effective communicator. And as we all know, communication is one of the most important skills that we can have. So I am super excited for this episode. I know you are all going to get at least one little nugget from it. If you listen to that little clip in the beginning, that's just a small amount of what's to come. This is going to be great. I really hope you enjoy it.
Benny.
There are some things that we talk about being visual cues. I'll put links in the show description for you to see those clips, and also put the clips out on social media so you'll know what we're talking about. Talking about the lips, you'll hear about it later. But ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my friend, Anne-Maartje Oud.
I started at the Academy of Arts, which is, I'm a director, and I'm allowed to teach people as well. And it means that when you translate it, it's the Academy of Arts for expression through physical and verbal communication. And a lot of people say, "Oh, but when you're in the arts, isn't it just about body language or, those kind of things?" But what I really loved is that it combined all these elements. And I remember very vividly when I was in my last year of the academy, somebody asked me, "Can you do a presentation on stage presence for," as you mentioned before, the people in gray suits who were not aware of their body language? And this was a light bulb moment. I thought, I love the arts. I really like to create a play or something, but there was also something missing because, people watched the play and they said, "Thank you very much." And then they had a great time. But the best part for me was actually to educate people on the part that they could use the body language, or they could use the knowledge of presence and all those kind of elements in their businesses. So that led me to writing my thesis on, is a theatrical, director, am I equipped to go into business? And to elaborate that part, but then in a business kind of way. So that's what I did. And then I first worked for an entrepreneur, and I learned a lot. It was fantastic. But at one point, I really felt the urge to, everything you learn and everything I wanted to do, which one of the things was having one-on-one sessions, like personal high performance trajectories, as I would call them, So that's when I decided to create my own company, which I did 17 years ago. So now the Behaviour Company is 17 years in the making. And so it feels like literally that was, like it's now a teenager, 17 years. Fantastic. So that's what I do. And I help people to become aware of their body language, but much, much more all about their behavior and what they can do to improve and to achieve the goals they want.
What's your favorite part of what you do?
I would say that when people realize, it's usually at the back end. So when somebody calls me or writes an email like, this was really helpful, or I really get it now, or I achieved what I wanted to achieve, that for me that would be the best. And there are many great moments because I always am super excited to do my job and to help others. But that really makes it, tangible. Then this is working. This is effective. Yeah. Yeah.
What are some of your favorite industries to work and help in?
That doesn't matter. And everybody needs this. So I started out in more in the finance area, but now it's so diverse also with nonprofit organizations or people who are in health organizations. I do like the diversity of all these different. If I would stay in one group, that would not be something I would like. I like all the different angles and the different culture in a business and those kind of things. Yeah.
What's the largest group you've ever presented to live?
The largest, I think that was 500, something like that. Yeah. Yeah, that was intense because I'm very interactive when I work one-on-one with people, with the CEO sometimes who wants to get more aware of his behavior or her behavior, their behavior. But when you are in a very big audience, I still want to achieve the same interaction. But you probably also, how many people that you interact with? Because a larger audience is different than a smaller one, right?
Yeah. I think my biggest live has been like 5,000.
Oh, wow.
But like same thing at that point, like I don't enjoy it as much because like, you have like the screens at that point, there's cameras. And to me, I like the intimacy. I love like less than like 200 people. Like you give me so for me, like it's like the private clubs and corporate events. That's my jam is you give me a group, you let me learn about them, tell me their likes, dislikes, give me some key phrases. What are some like internal things? Who's the funny one? Who's the annoying one? Who's like the bean counter? You give me all that and I will just infiltrate this room. And for that like hour-long show. So, but for, 5,000 people, it's still fine. But it's just like, I just don't like that. Yeah. Because then like when you say something, if it's funny, like the reaction time is slower.
It's much slower.
So like, you have to wait for people to like get it. And then like, it's a very different game.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I was just wondering because in my head, it would be almost similar as like, hey, if you really want to talk about some of that intricate detail stuff, sometimes you lose some of it on like a giant stage.
Yeah, and it is what it is. When you have a speech, it's different. You can do that in front of a lot of people. I haven't done 5,000, so I'm happy to do that one day. But when you really want to achieve something like changing the behavior, a smaller setting could be very helpful because then you can have interaction and pointing out like, oh, I see you doing something. And then you can point out the behavior much easier in the moment, in the spot. And that is helpful for people to realize, to get more conscious, like, oh, yes, I'm doing this. Or, oh, when I'm working with teams and sometimes when they are having conflicts or they're about to have conflicts, people hire me to observe and to help the team to to get in a better communication, on a better communication level, so to say. And then when you're in the moment and when you can help them to consciously say, hey, do you realize you don't let this person finish? Or do you realize that you are just writing stuff down the whole time? Then it makes it really helpful for them to talk about it. Yeah.
So reason why I wanted to bring you on is, this is all about private clubs. The private club world, from employees to members, is just all private clubs. And to me, it's a very unique space. And part, it's going to be two parts I'd like to talk about. One is, talk about, communications and behavior and things in the high-end hospitality space, which is where we're at. And then I'd like to move over to, we touched on it a little bit earlier, but, the dangers of kind of worlds right now is a little bit strange. And I know we're not going to talk about, physical, stuff, but, just seeing the signs on the wall, looking and noticing little patterns or behaviors that might go, hey, something's not right here. This might be a dangerous situation either right now or brewing, who, what, where, when, why, what should I do? What should I look for? So before we get to like the real, like the
nitty gritty stuff.
Yeah, the stuff. Let's talk about happy stuff. Let's talk about the fun stuff.
Yeah, what I think is important is that they don't just look at the staff, which usually is done a lot. So, okay, what is my staff doing? How are they performing? Which is a great question, but it starts so much earlier. How you present yourself as a club. So let me rephrase something. So because when people talk about nonverbal communication and behavior, and that's my expertise, of course, is that they only think about the body language of a person. Usually, not everybody, of course, because luckily it's getting more known now, but it has to do with everything in presenting yourself, the club, but also when somebody wants to register, how the website is working, or what do you present on the website and what is the reality, or what does the parking lot look like, or all these kind of things. And when you talk about it, everybody would say, yes, of course I think about this. Of course I think this is important, or I know this. But to apply it in their daily observation or in their daily practice or change, that is very difficult for people to do, because sometimes they're so focused on day-to-day things that are happening or staff problems. Or so what I always try to teach them is what is your goal in what is your company, of course, how do you want to represent that? And in every level, how can we see this in behavior? And behavior is also, what do you do when you see garbage on the floor? And it sounds very simple, but all those kind of things have to do with hospitality. But when it comes to, the people and how they represented, I'm always very focused on proactiveness, because you can be very kind and nice, So if I ask you something, oh, can I have a drink? Yes, of course. That's basic stuff. Still, there's a lot to learn, but that's where it starts. But if you want to be more, if you want to be extra hospitable, what can you do? So, and that's what they have to discuss. How does my club is going to be better? How are we going to excel at this? And those are many, many things you can do. And one of the advices would be the proactiveness. So you have to observe nonverbal communication. So if you see somebody, wondering with their eyes, oh, we have to observe this. They might need something, or they might have a question. And you don't wait for them to raise their hand or say, hey, can you help me? Or that they have to walk up to the reception or those kind of things. You have to be alert all the time. So to summarize, I would always say, what's the best thing? Situational awareness with everything.
Now, is that something that can be taught? Is it a learned? Is it something you're born with? Is it a mixture of, all the above? So in terms of, and I'm going to call them like high performers. So in terms of someone who you would see as who's very hyper vigilant, who is able to see and adapt and look and, do what you think would be well, do you think is it something that you're born with? Is it something that you learn? Is it a mixture of both?
In a way, you're born with it, because babies are very observant. If you observe still babies, but even toddlers, like they look at their parents or the people who raised them, and they copy things unexpectedly or very consciously, that you can see them doing things. Are amazing videos on that part. So in essence, we are observers. But the question is, what do we do with it when it comes to our business goals? Because that's a bit fast forward in time. And I think sometimes we're so occupied with our goals cognitively that we forget to observe others. and that we don't, and if we observe that we don't apply things like, oh, what does it mean, or what can I do with this? So sometimes people do observe, sometimes they don't. But in my line of business, I see that if you say, if it's going to be, is it possible to teach people this? Yes, definitely. We can teach people this, because it's almost going back to an alert list. Now, it doesn't mean that everybody can do this, because sometimes they don't want to do this. They're like, no, I just want to, I don't know, work with numbers, or they're not focused on the people part, or the observational part. But I would say, yes, we're born with it, but we forget it along the way, maybe. Yeah.
At what age, or I don't know if this is, how do I phrase this? At what point do you see the shift? So, if how do I phrase it? Like, because we were just talking about kids now, so it had me like going, not where I wanted to go originally, but as kids, when we start to grow up, we start to pivot and change. Is there a certain age, or oh my God, sorry, I know where I'm trying to go with this.
Yeah, but maybe
so we're all bored with this. Is there when does it start to, like, when do we go, okay, maybe I shouldn't because I might get in trouble, or where it takes the awareness, and then you go, okay, I need to do this, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to turn the other way and look.
Yeah, I understand your question, but I think especially for your listeners, they might really want to know this for their kids, but I think it never changes in a way, but as you say, it depends on your surroundings, how you will act upon it. So if you're in a setting and people stimulate you, for instance, oh, this is so good that you observed this, or oh, thank you for handing me the sugar because you saw that I wanted this, well done, then you will get a different reinforcement, instead of, why are you looking at me like that? Go and play in your room, or so all those kind of things. So I would say, or maybe when you're a teenager, people laugh at you like, oh, are you going to help the teacher? So it depends on how you are stimulated. So I wouldn't say, oh, we're losing something, or we are gaining something. I think it continuously has to do with the knowledge you have. And sometimes we need more input. We need to have more understanding of what kind of behavior do I have to look for, but also how is it, rewarded in a way, also in a business, because what you see that some people are really observant, and they go to their CEO, or they go to their manager, like, I've observed this, and then they are shut off, like, no, that's not your job, or go away, or I'm busy with something else, and that will stop the behavior. So I would say what is important is that you continuously validate when somebody does this, or when somebody observes something.
That's, yeah, no, sorry. My brain just went in a different direction with that, which is, the kind of learned, shared in behavior of, you're right, with the businesses. So if you're, sorry, I love this stuff so much. So like now the brain just keeps going.
That's okay.
Because,
I'm glad you like it.
So in my head, oh no, I love this stuff so much. So let me know if I'm understanding this correct. It's, so even if doesn't matter the age, demographic, anything, a private club, for example, if it's, everyone's just always a certain way and everything responds the same way. If you're a really good person at, reading the communications and behaviors, if you go in and you're trying to, be proactive and do all this, but if you're not getting the response back, or the what's what I'm looking for? Oh my God, there's so many words in my head going on right now. But if you're not getting the same triggers back, or the same reinforcement, then
you're not validation.
If you try to be there we go. Thank you so much. The validation. So if you're trying to be this, really good club manager, server, hospitality, whatever, if you're trying to go that extra mile and you're not getting the reinforcement back, then of course it's not going to.
Yeah.
How do you change that behavior?
Let me say one more thing.
It can even
lead to It can even lead to dysfunctioning in a way, because sometimes people who observe a lot or see a lot, they can be very critical on situations. So they notice things that are wrong, or they might address something. I think we should change this, or this is not good enough for our club. And if they get backlash all the time, or like, no, you shouldn't interfere with this, or this is not your job, or do something else, then what we see in businesses a lot, whether it's a club or a bank or a hospital, is that people say, okay, I'm not going to say anything anymore. Just let it be then. I'm not going to do this, because they say it's not my job. And that's such a waste of talent and opportunities. And it happens a lot. Yeah.
That's the worst phrase I hate. That is not my job.
Yeah. 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 Or the manager, that's not your job. That's what they do sometimes as well. Yeah.
Yeah. That's not good. So this is like, sorry, this is, it's one of the, you have like everything ready. And then I'm like, there's so much good stuff here.
That's great.
No, I know. This is like, I love all this stuff so much. You have no idea.
I can see it non-verbally on your face, Danny.
Yeah, I know. Now, and then it's like knowing you only have so much time, you want to provide as much value and like extract so much. I was like, ugh.
That's okay. That's okay. We'll continue.
Yeah. So, I think I just want to go straight to the bad part. Let's go. Because that's just where my head keeps going to a little bit. Is not the bad part, but we are in a really strange time now, and we're not going to talk about the physical de-escalation or fighting and stuff like that. But there's a lot of weird stuff going on, and when it comes to behavior, communication, we're in private clubs. It's a very small, close area. Can we talk about de-escalation a little bit? So we're talking about, hey, the things that we look for. What are some, I don't want to say triggers, but what are some things that I could, we can share with our club professionals that, what are some things that, to be on the lookout for, trigger, what are some things like that, what's the difference between maybe a, just like a little like sportsy argument and something that might develop into something deeper. What's some of that look like? What are some behaviors? Is it maybe some words? Is it a tweak? Is it like a little, like the way the head moves? Like, what are some little things that are just little kind of like check marks that people can go, hey, you know what? I'm watching this happen. Yeah. Okay. This happened. I think it's going to be okay. Or it's like, oh, I saw this. I heard this. Okay. Yeah, I might have to maybe go de-escalate. I may have to maybe keep an eye out on this or tell some other people. That's kind of where my head is at with this. Can you maybe elaborate on that a little bit?
Great question.
I know it's not so much a question; it's a little bit more open-ended. But that's just where I'm seeing is like, hey, we're in the club world. We talked a little bit about before we hit record. It's whether it's people, drinking at the bar, watching a sports game, whether it's they're out on the course, and they might be friends in the club, but not outside the club, or they had something happen outside the club, and maybe it's coming into the club, like, a little internet argument or something. So that's where my head's at. Is like, hey, we're coming into this enclosed space. What are some things to like look for?
Yeah. Well, I think there's still a great question there, Danny. So this is a question. Let me first talk about setting, because that is very important. Because if you're in the dark, even if it's a club where we're, dancing and the light that's a completely different setting than a bar. And a bar is a completely different setting than the Sunday morning brunch in a club. So all those kind of elements are important, because if we want to look for body language, of course, we have to be able to observe them. Now, because it's very broad, and again, it starts with the beginning. How do people enter? What is the way they present themselves? Are they agitated already? Are they a bit, how can we say, dismissive towards, for instance, someone who's at the reception or the entrance of the club? So all these little things are very important. How do they behave themselves? Are they throwing? You have this amazing scene in a movie where somebody throws the bag and here's my coat, and that's already a different approach. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that this person is going to cause havoc, but we have to understand, there's a certain agitation there. That might be very visual. So it starts with, are we observant in the beginning? Now, maybe it just happens during the setting. And I always tell my clients to look out for three things. And first is the content. So sometimes you literally hear it. It's like what is said. Literally the text you can hear somebody verbalizing something negative or politically, a bit complicated or politically incorrect, maybe. So that literally would be the text. That is something you need to be alert for. Am I listening? Am I hearing things that might be off-putting or wrong or maybe cause something? So that would be the first one, content. The second one is the procedure. How do people respond to, for instance, the rules we have in our club? So, for instance, if you have a club where you want to buy alcohol and you have to show your ID, how do they respond to that? Well, you want to show me? I have to show my ID. Oh, that's so stupid. Or so it's how do they respond to rules and the procedure? Or if they have to wait, for instance, for 10 minutes, what is happening with that? Are they calm? Are they relaxed? Or in the minute that they have to wait, is there already something happening? So everything that has to do with procedures, and it could be 100 procedures, but how do they respond to that? And is something happening there? Are they following the rules or not? What did it do with it? And the last part, and of course, that's usually my favorite, that's the interaction. How do they behave? What is their body language? What is their prosody? So one of the things I always like to quote is Joan Navarro, who says, when the lips disappear, trouble is near. Yes, it doesn't have to be that specifically all the time, but it's a very good indication that there might be something stressful going on. And we see this, and I don't know if there's also going to be a video, right? So some people might see this, but it's like literally pressing the lips like this. And we can look at the furrowed glabella. So if this is going on combined with this, you can see the bit more agitated face, or a bit more intense eye contact. That could be something to look out for as well. But for instance, also the upper body part we can look at. So when people, what I always teach is try to have comfort for both parties. And if you see discomfort happening, so people might lean away a bit, or they might, literally lean forward. That could mean that they will become aggressive. That those kind of things we have to look out for. So how can we defuse those kind of things? If we're in it, it's easier because we can create a little bit of distance. We can use a head tilt, for instance, to create more comfort. We can lower our voice a bit and talk a bit slower to create more relaxation. So if I'm a manager and I'm talking like this all the time and you shouldn't do this, that is not helpful. That will not de-escalate the situation. But if we observe something like that, we can do the same. Hey, what's going on? Is there something you guys need? So we can do all those kind of things to help others. But it starts again with the observation and maybe the guts, you could say, to act upon it. Because sometimes we don't dare to do this. What if something happens? And then we wait a bit too long, and then we might have a situation where something happens which causes violence. And I'm not always say you can prevent violence. There are a lot of moments where you can, if you observe well enough, and not just in the moment when they're in the club, but already, if possible, in the parking lot or maybe online. How do they register? I want this. That's a different way of registering. Could I please have the possibility to have a table for? That's completely different. So it doesn't mean that it's like that, but you have to be alert on everything.
No,
Yeah.
I just go no, because like I go back and I really like the content, procedure, and then interaction. But then you're right, just seeing it and then whether you do something about it or not.
Yeah.
I think that's like everyone goes, I should have did something.
I should have done something.
I should have said something then.
Yes. And it also, because we get a bit, when we see something that is uncomfortable, we might get stressed too. So a lot of times when people are stressed, they kind of don't know what to do. So they might freeze. As we all know, these moments happen. But especially when you're at the end where you want to help others, or when you want to be like really, you have to have hospitality, that means you have to act sooner than others. And that's why the proactiveness is so important. You cannot wait until something happens. You have to see it, well, preferably an hour before. And it's important to listen again to the content, but also the voice, the tone of voice. How is somebody speaking to you or to your staff? And do you, even if it's a very important VIP member, what happens when this member, for instance, say something negative towards your staff? Do you dare to respond? And how will you do this? Because you can do this in a very polite manner, and still be very firm on content. Nobody talks to my staff like that, or I don't want my staff to be talked to like this, or sorry, it's not allowed to talk to my staff like this. But the content can be firm and the interaction can be very kind. But if you do nothing, or you like don't set any rules, oh, this is our greatest VIP member, so we it's just this person, and you tell your staff, just never mind, it will pass. Those kind of elements, well, they're very damaging, and I would say not just for your staff, but for the whole club, because other members observe that kind of behavior and also expect you as a club or as a representative of the club to act on that specific behavior. And if you don't do anything, I would say that's very unwise. Yeah.
So if you're someone who's, let's say, more on the, non-confrontational side and, don't handle well under pressure, how's a good way to become better under pressure? Like, how do you move your own needle forward to, like, so, if you're in a situation like that, how can you take a proper step forward in the right direction?
Yeah.
Meaning, like, let's just say I'm a general manager. All of a sudden, we do have that VIP, that really good member, but what's one step to take that is in the right direction instead of just always agreeing or, submitting to them? What is like a proper step to take to move in the right direction to help enhance kind of the communications and that scenario?
Well, first, I would say you have to know what you will tolerate and will not tolerate. That is, you have to know this very clearly. There's no gray area there. It's like, okay, this is okay, this is not okay. And if you know that, and something happens that is very specifically in the no-go area, you have to consciously realize, oh, this is the no-go area, equals I have to do something. So that's the first realization, I would say. And then you have to act. And that is the second part. So the first part is knowing things and observing things and knowing that you have to act. And then the second part would be who am I and how do I act upon these situations? So what I do sometimes, I work with these people on high performance trajectories, because they're afraid of stepping up, or maybe they're too aggressive. That's also possible, that they like, stop this, and they have to learn how to become a bit calmer. So one of the steps I would advise people is to understand who are they and what is their behavior when it comes to these stressful situations. So if you know, oh, I shut down, that means I have to understand, okay, this is my natural behavior. Now I have to do something opposite, or something that I know, but how to do this. So how do I translate that to my body? So for instance, it could be that you practice with literally making yourself a bit bigger, for instance, or not just saying it in a very soft voice, but speaking up, so, and you can do this in a very calm way. Now, for others, it might mean that they have to lower their voice because they're screaming like this, and that is not helpful. So we teach them, okay, what do you need to do? So I cannot really answer the question, like, what do you need to do, apart from getting really self-conscious or self-aware. And then again, combine it with your, how do you say this, the profile of your club. Because there's a difference too. If you if you're in a bar and you're in a sports bar, that's a different atmosphere than a Rotary club, for instance. So we have to understand what is applicable or what helps in this kind of situation in this club. So it's first, what is the club? Who am I? Who's this person? And what is helpful is how can I create comfort? And this is where the membership comes in. Because if you know your people, if you know your members, and sometimes you have a good relationship with them, you know them very well, you know them by name, you know their patterns in the club. So you can use that to create comfort. Like you can address the person personally and say, I know you were also here last week and it was so amazing that we, and you refer to something that was a very good atmosphere, a very good time, and that might help to calm this person down as well. Or you can refer to the future. If this is happening, I'm very sorry, but then next week's dinner cannot happen. Or I don't know a specific example in this case, of course, but you can do certain things, but knowing this other person and knowing yourself and knowing your club, that's basically what you need to do.
It's every time now you keep bringing up a different situation or something else. I keep going back to the context, procedure, and interaction. Now I'm
that's what I teach.
Good. And it's it's so good because that does it. It's so quick, but it also gives you the proper information that you need to hopefully quickly make a correct decision. So it's hey, this member, why are they upset? Okay, what's the context? Are they following procedure? Are they trying to be, are they trying to cut across the line? Are they trying to skip a line? Are they trying to get in when they shouldn't be able to? And then the interact. Oh, that's so good. That is so good. And it's so quick. It takes 30 seconds.
And this is literally, this is my model. It's called the helicopter metaphor. And you're as a helicopter. So you observe as quickly as possible what is happening here and what can I do? So this is how I work with people to make them understand, oh, I'm very good at understanding content. I'm good at listening. I'm very good at picking up on things. Oops, but I don't pick up on the body language. That's my mistake. I have to learn more about that. Or I'm very good at body language, but I'm not really listening to them. Or, all these kind of things. Or I don't even know the procedures when something is happening. What can I do? So it's very tangible, effective model.
Yeah, that's so good. The helicopter metaphor. I like that. Are there any other cool, little tidbits that you could inject to the people?
Well, I could again quote Joe Navarro, belly away, they don't want to stay. So if you see somebody turning their torso, you might have an indication that they don't want to be in the conversation anymore. So that's also very, we can observe that what's happening in the conversation with this person. So that I love that sentence because it is these nice takeaways that you can have. So for myself, what I always try to teach people is know your role and know your goal, because you can really think something is off personally, but it doesn't have to mean that the club would disagree those situations. And I don't mean the escalated situation we just talked about. If it's off, if it's derailing, you have to stop it no matter what, because we're all humans and we need to create good and safe settings for ourselves, for our members, for our staff. So, but what I do think sometimes is sometimes it's important that you understand what is my role here and what is my goal here. So, okay, I want this person to be removed from the club, could be a goal. Okay, what is my role? Yes, I'm the manager here, so I can do this. But my role is also to have a safe, good club. So I have to do this in a certain way that it's not just me and this person interacting, but me representing the whole club and doing something that is not just for me and this person in the moment, but it's for everybody who's watching and doing something, which usually means please act, because people kind of like it when something is being taken care of and in a good way. And you see this in fantastic clubs where I've had experiences myself Also in security, where I even did that myself. I was in settings where I had to remove somebody, and you can do this in an aggressive way, but you can also be very kind, like, hey, you're breaking the rules. I want you to leave. No, I don't want to leave. Yeah, but you have to leave. And you can do this non-verbally by not touching them, of course, but, holding your hand a bit towards them so they really understand. And the other hand, you're showing them to the doors. There's all these little things. And but to summarize, I would say what I would like people to have as a takeaway is that the best conversations or the best businesses take place with comfort for both parties. That is what I teach. That is what I try to do. You have to be comfortable, and the other person has to be comfortable, and everybody has to be comfortable. But it doesn't mean that there's allowance for any of them to overstep boundaries. So that's important.
Thank you so much, Anne. We really appreciate you being on the show and spending some time with us. That is this episode. If you have any questions for Anne, she is really a genuinely nice person. I'll put her email in the show description, as well as her LinkedIn, Twitter, and website. If you have any questions, she's more than happy to answer them. Just reach out to her email or connect with her on LinkedIn or one of her many other ways, and she'll be more than happy to answer any questions you may have. Or even if you're interested for any of her services, she does some really cool stuff to help organizations and teams become better communicators. That's it for this episode. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Private Club Radio. Catch y'all on the flippity flip.